It's your dude, Stevie G, coming back at you again with another Seamless Garage podcast. On this episode, I want to talk about something that is something that's been on my mind for a while. It's near and dear to my heart, and it's something that a lot of people have been discussing the past few years, and that is the mechanic field dying? You know, I've had people ask me that. I've asked myself that. And so I want to go ahead and address it and kind of go through some points that I have about it, and maybe shed some light on some things. So let's get started. Is the mechanic field dying? Well, I wouldn't say it's dying, I would say it's evolving. Alright? Let's start with one of my main points. We have a major tech shortage right now. Like, every dealership I've talked to, because I've got a lot of friends in different dealerships, especially my dealership, we're not getting any applications in, which is weird. You know what I mean? I mean, we're definitely hiring, and every dealership I drive by has a sign out saying hiring technicians, but we're not seeing anybody come in and apply. You know, why is that? Well, I don't know. This is, you know, a lot of people will say we'll probably blame it on COVID, you know, on the pandemic, but this was happening way before then, so that is not the issue. What do I think the issue is? Well, that's a great question. I've got several points to go over on that, but you know, the shortage is probably caused by some of these other things. But I just wanted to bring that up first. That the reason why people are asking is the technician field dying. You know, some of the older guys, some of the old heads are saying that we're just a dying breed. You know what I mean? They're not making, you know, they don't make us anymore. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's the case. Here's one thing I'll bring up. I noticed, so I started riding BMX again, or not again, but I started riding bikes and I got into BMX here in the past month or so, and I started riding around one of my hometowns, and I noticed there's no kids outside, so that's got me kind of dumbfounded. I don't understand that. When I was growing up, we were all outside, and I'm only 29, so yeah, I was playing games too. I was playing video games too. So that's not what I'm blaming it on. I'm just saying I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's even bigger now because of, you know, battle royales and stuff like that. If you're into games, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, it's just games are huge these days. That's how people socially interact. But I don't even think it's that, man, because even as a kid now, I feel like if they had a dirt bike or something to ride, you know, they'd be outside. So these all bring up things that you would need to work on, right? That are going to have wear and tear, and you're going to have issues with your chain popping off your dirt bike. You're going to have to work on it. Same thing with a bicycle, skateboard. You know, anything you would do outside, really, you may end up having to work on it. You know what I mean? So me not seeing kids outside is giving me a good indicator that kids aren't doing the same things that they used to do. They're not out using machinery and stuff like that they would have to work on. Because that's how I cut my teeth. You know what I mean? That's how I learned how to turn wrenches. Started on fixing my friends and my own bike. So, you know, that's where I come from with turning wrenches. My grandfather handed me a wrench and said, "Look, man, you keep popping your chain, you keep doing this and that, you're going to have to learn how to fix it because I'm not going to always be here." And so that's when I started. So that's the first thing I'll bring up. I think secondly, or, you know, they're not in any particular order, but, you know, my second point is that the pay scale is a little awkward, okay? It's performance based, which I know a lot of career paths are going that way now, which I like. I like performance based because that means I'm only getting paid when I'm getting stuff done, and I'm not just getting paid hourly, so I don't get lazy. I don't sit around, and Because I remember in hourly jobs, I'd be busting my butt and I look over at the guy next to me and he's just chilling on his phone or what have you, but he's getting paid the same I am because we're both here, you know what I'm saying? Whereas when it's performance based, you know, you're on your own. You kick butt, you get paid better than the guy beside you who's just chilling, still on his phone, even though it's performance based. So it's an awkward pay scale that a lot of people aren't used to or they can't get used to. I'm gonna make another episode about this little topic that I'm gonna bring up now. Is that I've seen a lot of techs come in that were new and it's not their first job in the workforce, so they've had hourly jobs, this and that, and it's hard for them to adapt when they go into performance based, when they go into flag rate, where they're, you know, they're only getting paid by the car depending on the job they're doing, and when that happens, they almost always blame the industry and they don't come back. They either try to find an hourly job in the industry or they change positions, they change career paths, which I've seen both. So that's one thing I'd say is I feel like guys are losing themselves when they come in. If they would listen to the Seamless Garage podcast, I've given them so many tips on what you got to do and the fact that you've got to climb the ladder. You're going to have to bite the bullet the first year. You know, the first year to two, you're not going to make 40 hours a week. I mean, you could, but you're really probably not learning. You're probably just grinding, doing gravy work, and you're really not getting in the nitty-gritty of it. So, yeah, awkward pay scale, man. It's just, like I said, if you've never done it before, it is awkward, and you're used to, regardless, you being there, you're getting paid. So on those slow weeks, you're not getting paid 40. You're getting paid whatever you got out. There's not that many cars coming in, you're not getting paid as much. So I think that's one thing that's pushing people away. The ones that are interested, the ones that I see come in, if they leave, it's usually because of that. It's because they're not making enough money. And like I said, I wouldn't necessarily blame it on the industry because there's a lot of us out here that are making great money, making a good living. So I wouldn't blame it on that. No. So it's just a mindset. You got to understand that you're coming in, you're climbing the ladder, you're learning. They're not going to pay you 40 hours a week to learn a trade. You know what I mean? Like, you need to figure out that on your own and figure out your own way. Being a mechanic, being a technician, and being in a shop is real open, you know, and real, you know, you got a lot of freedom. So it's up to you to learn how to be efficient, which I'm going to have an episode on that real soon on the podcast, on how to be efficient. If you're not efficient and you're not, when you're working, thinking of ways you could have did it faster, better, without cutting any corners and without, you know, jeopardizing your job, if you're not thinking that way, you're not going to improve and you're not going to make, you know, better efficiency and better money. So that's one point. And then, you know, there's this misconception that this kind of goes on with that, but there's this misconception that automotive technicians and mechanics or what have you don't get paid well. And I think this misconception comes from a lot of different areas. I think it comes from old heads that, like, people's grandparents, people's parents that were in the field, that may have been these other guys I was talking about that couldn't get used to not being hourly, got burnt out on it, and so they're telling their kids and their grandkids that they shouldn't get into the field. So you got that going on. But you've also got what I've noticed it, and it's a pet peeve of mine, and it bugs me to death. It bugs me. I notice it every time I see it. And when I bring it up, you guys are going to be like, oh yeah, I noticed that too. Or you'll think about it and you'll need to see what I'm talking about at least. In movies, they always portray the mechanic or the technician as a poor guy barely making it. Always. Here's a really good example, The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman. He was a mechanic in there, right? They show him as being broke. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would not necessarily say that. There are mechanics making in the upper five figures incomes, and there's mechanics making six-figure incomes. So I don't agree with that. But if people are believing what they're seeing in the movies, then they may not even be interested. So really right now, the only people I see interested in cars are the kids that are out riding dirt bikes or whatever they got into it and they like turning wrenches, or they're into cars. You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily translate into the dealership. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to be working on high performance cars and stuff in a dealership. Now, if you get into a performance shop, that's great. But those are few and far between, and they only need a couple of techs, and the flow is not as consistent. So you got to keep that in mind. But coming into the shop, that's like I said, you're seeing those type of guys that are just into cars. So that's what we're seeing. Now, I graduated from UTI in 2011, at the end of 2011, and we graduated with a bunch of people. And just in my class alone, there are a bunch of very smart people. And a majority of the people I graduated with and my friends are still mechanics. They're still technicians, and they've done really well for themselves. So I haven't been around a school, in the past 10 years. So I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it's empty in those places or what's going on. But I can tell you right now, I'm very happy when I see somebody interested. And if you're a technician listening to this and you're doing well, please encourage others. If they're interested, please encourage them. And if they got questions, answer them. Help them out, because they may be interested in this field. That's the other thing. I've talked about this in a previous podcast before. A bunch of older guys that have been in the field a long time, especially when I go to the training center, are trying to tell me that they're trying to get out of the field, but they're stuck. It's the only way they can make good money, so they stick with it, but they hate doing it. You know what I'm saying? That's the wrong mindset. To me, you start out not liking cars and you just used it as a career. You need to really like cars to be in this. You know what I'm saying? You need to really. You don't necessarily have to like cars, but you need to be into mechanics. You need to be into wondering how stuff works and being and taking stuff apart and putting it back together. You got to be that kind of mindset. But like I said, they tried to tell me. I was in there one time and I told them that I loved working on cars, and they're like, "Well, you've only been in the field 10 years." To me, 10 years is quite a while. I was working on cars way before that, by the way. And I was like, I love it so much that I get off and I go home to my shop and work on cars some more. And they looked at me crazy, and they're like, that'll change. I'm like, I'm a different breed, man. I don't know that that's going to change at all. But so that's another one. But just to wrap it up, do I think the mechanic field's dying? I need to close this out by giving you guys an answer. So let me think about this for a second. Do I think that the mechanic field is dying? Actually, I've got one more point. Hold on. I got one more point, and then we'll get to that. There's this phase that's going on that I've noticed, and it's totally fine, but it's just interesting and it's a little bit different. The guys that are getting into the field, like we were talking about before a little bit, they're coming into it the same way that these guys were trying to get me out of the field, right? They're coming into it because it makes good money. So you got the other guys that think it does make good money, which it does, and that's the only reason they're doing it. They're not doing it because they enjoy it or anything. They're doing it because it's a good career path, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that. But they come into it, and so they're not studying. They're not really into how things work. They're just into doing it fast and making money. And, that's fine. That's fine. But those guys are going to get paid less because they're worth less, right? You're not worth as much when you're one-dimensional and you're just good at changing parts and stuff like that. You got to be good, well-rounded. Like, you got to increase your value in order to get paid more, and you've also got to increase your value in order for the company or whatever you're doing to value you. Okay, so a guy who doesn't know how to diagnose, or a guy who doesn't understand how the systems work, is a guy that's out. He's less valuable than someone who's coming in there and knows all of it, but can also bust his ass and flag hours as well. So keep that in mind. Guys, sorry about the raspy voice. Allergies are kind of getting to me. A little bit under the weather, but if you can stand it, I'm gonna really get some good information in here. So, like I said, let me speed this up a little bit. Like I said, when they come in the field, they're just trying to make money. So they just find ways to cut corners and go fast, but they can't really diagnose. So they end up being a parts changer, or they end up throwing parts at cars, which gets them a bad rap because they get comebacks because they weren't for sure that that's what was wrong with the car, and it just becomes a big problem. But that's what I'm seeing, the shift in the field right now, is you'll have those guys, and then you'll have guys like me who are good at it all, but really good at diagnose, really understand the system, and can really figure it out. So you kind of got to decide what you want to be. You know what I mean? So I would suggest just making sure that this is the field you want to be in before you just jump in it. You know what I mean? Maybe work on your own car, fix some family members' cars, stuff like that. And make sure this is a field you want to be in. My last point on, if the mechanic field is dying is, this kind of goes into that transition I was telling you about. With the EV cars coming in, with electric vehicles, right? With the battery-powered vehicles, there's going to be a lot of changes because, and I'm going to go into depth on another episode on this. I've got so many episodes because this is going to be daily, so I've got so many topics that I'm excited to talk about. I'm glad I get to get all this information out. I'm really excited about it. But anyway, it's going to be less maintenance. Electric motors actually help brake. So your brakes aren't going to wear out as fast. In fact, we've never done a Leaf brake job at the dealership I'm at, which Leaf is, Nissan's electric vehicle. You ain't got to worry about oil changes. You still got to do rotations, but you ain't got to worry about oil changes. You do not have to worry about coolant flushes. You don't have to worry about induction services, things like that, timing belts, timing chains, head gaskets blowing, leaking, oil leaks. You don't have to worry about those type of things. You still got to worry about CV axles and stuff like that, but you don't have to worry about most of the maintenance items. You just don't. While the regular internal combustion engine is stopping every 40K or so to get services done, that electric vehicle is driving right past the dealership. They're only coming in for their rotation every 5,000 miles or so. So I say that to say this. When this transition happens and there's more and more electric vehicles on the road, because it's coming, it's inevitable. It's like when you switched from your flip phone to a touchscreen phone and you didn't want to do it, and then you ended up doing it. It's inevitable. You have to do it. You didn't want to put that BlackBerry down because you needed the buttons, and then guess what? You put it down and you got the touch phone because guess what? It's just that much better. So it's gonna happen with the EV. I hate to say it. I'm going to be the old school head, obviously still running my turbocharged gasoline engine. But I'll probably own an electric vehicle. I'm going to get into the performance side of that as well. I'm definitely going to delve deep into that and try to get ahead. You know what I mean? I know there's people already out there messing with it, but I'm going to try to be ahead of the curve. Because to me, they're just oversized RC cars. But like I'm saying, there's not going to be as much maintenance. So there's not going to be as much of a need of technicians, okay? There's not going to be as much of a need of technicians in the shop. It's not like everybody's going to be out there rebuilding batteries all the time. Now, this is years down the road. The plan for them is what, 2035, I think, is the plan for the government, or maybe it's 2035. There's still obviously going to be gasoline engines on the road for a long time. But I'm saying there's going to be less of a need. And it's really going to phase these guys out who can't diagnose and stuff like that. So, but what I'm saying is with less maintenance comes less of a need of as many technicians. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know. I can't see the future. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't tell you. I'm just saying it's a possibility. So let me go ahead and answer the question. Do I think the mechanic field or technician, however you like to say it, automotive mechanic field is dying? I don't think it's dying. I think it's transitioning. I think that when there's a need, it'll get filled. So I just think I think it'll pop back up. I think it's gonna get more popular again. It's gonna have to. The pay is too good, and it's just a fun job. That, you know what I mean. People are still gonna do it. I don't think it's dying. I just think it's gonna transition into the tech guys, like the techie guys, like, you know, to build PCs and stuff like that. I think you're gonna see some of those guys transition into working on cars. In my opinion, I think that's what it's gonna be. So I don't think it's dying. I don't think it's dying at all. So that's my opinion. I was gonna say something else, but I don't remember what it was. I cannot remember. But yeah, the electric vehicles are gonna change. It's gonna change everything. It really is. It's gonna change the whole ball game on how we look at cars, how we work on cars. But stay tuned for that episode. So, but hit me up on Instagram. Hit us up on the Instagram, the Seamless Garage Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. If you're listening to it in the podcast, find a way to contact me on Facebook, Instagram, that kind of deal. And let me know what you think. Do you think the mechanic field's dying? What do you think about electric vehicles? Do you think that the pay scale needs to change? Do you think it needs to be revamped? If you're a technician, you might know about this. Do you agree with me on kids not being out in the outside as much? And this could be the reason why we're not seeing as many kids coming up wanting to turn wrenches. Let me know what you think. I'm very excited to see what you think. And this is another episode of the Daily Seamless Garage Podcast. Make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow. Whatever you got to do to get notifications, because these things are coming out on the daily. And so I really appreciate y'all listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.